just fix your hair and we'll do that photo. Feel free to raise hands during the workshop, ask questions on the chat, and if you want to wave to us to get our attention to ask a question, that's absolutely fine as well. We'd love to interact with you during this session. So that's it from me. Over to you and Sam for the meat of the session.
Thanks, Varun. Good afternoon, everybody. It's morning here. It's first thing on a Monday morning. Hope everybody's having a good summit so far. As Varun said, we're very happy for this to be quite interactive. We do have a few slides to go through, but I can sense there's quite a few different areas that people are interested in. If we can help to chat through some of your specifics, then we're happy to do that. But for now, I will kick off. I'll just share my screen. Make sure I'm sharing the right one. So yeah, today we are going to talk through predictive analytics and how you can specifically use predictive analytics to take action. It's obviously quite a common theme these days, AI, ML. It's everywhere, but how do you start? How do you approach that? Quick introduction to myself and Sam. So I'm Anne Sargent. I head up the data science team within Linchpin. I have a background that's primarily in maths and stats back in my day for my sins, but very fortunately ended up in a consultancy agency as part of my first job role, working for SPSS within Ireland, and within that role got a lot of exposure to different businesses with different business problems, and using predictive analytics as sources to solve those things. Having worked in Ireland initially, came over to the UK, where I actually went client side for quite a while. I worked for different companies such as Avis and Experian. So primarily using really customer focused analytics, who our customers are and how we can use predictive analytics to solve those problems. I then moved back to consultancy business, working for Linchpin, where I've been for the last 7 to 8 years. And our team works across a variety of predictive analytics projects, working with business professionals, looking at areas such as customer segmentation, marketing analysis, channel attribution, but also supplementing those with quite advanced BI and reporting functions. And I'll talk a little bit more about sort of the company as a whole in a minute. So I'll hand over to Sam to introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sam. I've got kind of a background in like maths and physics, but started my career kind of 3 years ago as a data scientist. Worked across a broad range of industries, working with clients like Emirates and Allergan, kind of a pharmaceutical company. In my time at Linchpin, I've kind of specialized in marketing attribution and have implemented quite a few different bespoke models for a number of clients. And I've got quite a broad range of skills in a lot of tools, things like Tableau and Python, R, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So myself and Sam are part of a company called Linchpin Analytics. We are an independent analytics consultancy. Essentially what that means is we are not affiliated with any one particular tool or vendor. We operate across a lot of tools. So we use a lot of open source tools, for example, R and Python, to facilitate our analytics. We work across different aspects of BI tools. So Tableau, Power BI, some of the more digital focused ones like Data Studio, etc. And we have quite a strong heritage in digital analytics as a whole as well, working across Adobe, Google Analytics, etc. So that independence enables us to have a very open view to how you and your business should be able to do your analytics. On top of that, while myself and Sam are predominantly within the data science analytics aspect of the company, we have a very strong data engineering function. So our data engineers enable us to do all the heavy lifting with the data, tagging websites, collecting that data, and enabling that data to be pulled out for our analytics. Also, we have a data strategy department who looks at the overarching aspects of our data strategy. The agenda today is what is predictive analytics. So this is the core of what we're looking to discuss. Predictive analytics, what is it and how we can take some action from it. While leading up to predictive analytics, however, there are some important functions around data collection, automation, and reporting and PI, which we realize how important that is to actually being able to draw action from predictive analytics. We also have a bit of a focus on some specific areas of predictive analytics. The landscape for analytics, AI and ML is huge, and I'm sure everybody is quite aware of a lot of the stuff that's thrown out there at the moment. Today we've thrown a very specific focus area on four areas that we believe are drawing a lot of action and a lot of focus on key areas within businesses at the moment. And we'll talk through how we can bring that all in together to enable that within your customer, to enable your customer understanding and to enable action within your organization.
So yeah, to kick things off, just kind of a brief overview of what predictive analytics is. So essentially, what you're trying to do is take historic data and make predictions for future events based off that historical data. So you pass that historical data through an algorithm, that gives you a model. You then deploy that model, and that allows you then to take new data and make predictions for customers and what they might do in the future. So when we talk about predictive analytics, we might be talking about recommendation engines, where someone comes onto your site, you can then recommend particular content for them or particular products. We might talk about kind of attribution. So like, given that they come from a particular thing, like what kind of marketing will work best for them. Segmentation, there's lots of tools that we'll kind of go into a bit later on. Next slide. So the importance of predictive analytics for businesses. So these are kind of some of the top reasons why you might look to implement a predictive analytics model. So the top one here, identify and respond to customer trends. So by looking at kind of historic data and data up to up to now, that will help you identify kind of emerging trends. So for instance, if you're a clothes retailer, you might see in the data, you might see in your dashboards and your reporting that I don't know, a certain color or a certain type of clothing is becoming popular, and so you might then want to respond by increasing the stock in that area, which allows you to maximize the revenue. So cross-sell and upsell. So again, that's kind of going back to recommendation, where a customer comes onto your site, they belong to a particular segment, or they've purchased something in the past, like maybe they've purchased a camera. So you might want to then recommend that they purchase a lens, or maybe a printer to print off their photos. So that can again optimize conversion rates and really kind of maximize revenue from each purchase. Another couple of things: so understand the customer need and predict future behavior. So this is where you look at a customer and try and predict whether maybe they'll churn, whether they'll continue using your product, and by doing so, by predicting whether where they fall within your kind of customer segmentation, you can then personalize marketing to fit them. So maybe it seems like they're going to churn, maybe they're not going to subscribe again, and so you might send out a kind of an offer code or something similar. And then finally, kind of just extracting actionable insight to inform business decisions. So I guess the kind of thing that underpins predictive analytics is just drawing out insight from data. Obviously, looking at raw data isn't particularly interesting. It doesn't provide you a lot. So predictive analytics tries to transform that raw base data into very clear, very actionable business decisions that ultimately will lead to higher conversion rates and increased revenue. And what we've kind of mapped out here is the analytics maturity curve. So it's kind of, we're trying to an abstraction of the process of getting from that raw data to your predictive models. So on the left, kind of the first thing you might look at doing is automating the data. So that's pulling all of the data that you have, so your back-end systems, you know, your Google Analytics or Adobe or kind of web data or whatever data you have, pulling it into one central repository to create that source of truth, and then to clean the data and make it prepared for the second stage, which is kind of your reporting and insight. That's where you're building dashboards and tools that allow you to see the data in a kind of human readable way, and will allow you to effectively draw insight for kind of any person viewing it. So whether that's the C-level or whether that's kind of analysts or what have you. Third point here is predictive modeling. So once you've got those dashboards that have drawn out the insight, how can you then improve on that? You can then build kind of these complex models that will allow you to, as I said, kind of maximize the revenue, decrease churn, increase retention. And then finally, optimization, which is what do I do with all the information that I've got? How do I make business decisions based off what I have? And also, how do I continue to optimize my reporting, insight and analytics, my predictive models? How do I make sure that I'm continuously getting all the data I need to make effective business decisions?
So walking a little bit through that, I know today our core focus is predominantly on predictive analytics, but we wanted to touch base very briefly around two of those initial areas on the analytics maturity curve. So we'll start quickly with data collection automation. This is vast becoming a key area that's helping to drive any general analytics functions, and you'll see it a lot in the key trends around AI and ML. Anything to do around automating your data and collecting the right data is quite core to setting your foundations for true analytic success. The impact of this is quite vast, really. We've got quite a few key functions where working with our clients, we can see some quite clear benefits. While data collection and automation can seem quite boring and perhaps quite, well, of course we need to do that. Actually, when you sit down and you do that correctly, you can drive some very clear benefits across your organization. One of the key things is it does establish a single source of truth. We've all heard this, but this is quite fundamental as an organization. If you're drawing all of your data in and everybody's pulling from that same data lake and that data pool, then you know that you are coming to similar conclusions and have a coordinated effort in terms of the analysis and the insights that you're pulling across the business. Centralizing that data access as well is obviously quite key. The amount of time and effort that people put into manually pulling together data from various different data sources can be huge. Working with a client, and a very simple example of a graph that we see here on the right, pulling together their Google Analytics sources, their Google Ads, data from their business targets so that they understood how they were tracking against KPIs and targets, and then working within the raw data within Google BigQuery, we're able to pull all of that data in, process it, create a clear data lake, and then push that back out through a Tableau server environment that could be interacted with within the entire company. Working off even just that initial source of data, and that data lake became even bigger as time went on, pulling in many more data sources across Salesforce, customer management tools, etc. The initial impact from this particular client was that they had a 70% reduction in time spent gathering data. So while initially a lot of these projects may seem like they're not that interesting, it's hard to understand what the cost benefit analysis of it is. Even with that 70% reduction in time spent gathering data, actually the further incremental impact on the amount of revenue that you can have by now taking that time and focusing it on clear analytics that drive action. It's actually hard to put money on that, but that very simple statement at the end, money saved and value gained. So spending that time, putting the data into one data source, and then being able to focus that on all of the analytics that can come after the point, actually drives revenue in various different areas.
So second point, kind of reporting, insight and analytics. So in the same way that you're trying to reduce time kind of gathering and collecting data, you're also then trying to reduce the time you spend using that data to produce insight. I'm sure we're all very familiar with like downloading CSVs and all that kind of thing, creating the same report over and over again. So what reporting in BI is trying to do is lessen that load. You know, you're trying to automate that process so that every week you go back to a report, there's nothing you need to do. The insights are there available for you to read, and really just taking the time and the kind of monotony of getting insight out of the kind of work life and presenting everything in a very visual and digestible manner. So yeah, how can reporting in BI help you? So what reporting in BI is trying to do is combine all of the various data sources so that you don't have to. So, you know, you have your Google Analytics, you have your backend data, you have whatever data you have on customers, you have that all within one central repository and all presented in the same place. Something we see with a lot of clients is that they'll have quite a few dashboards that say the same thing, but maybe they have slightly different data sources or they have slightly different numbers. So like one dashboard might say you had 10,000 sessions a week, whereas another one might say you had like 11,000, because they're slightly different data sources that have been prepared in a slightly different way. So an effective reporting and BI implementation will ensure that you have a single source of truth, you know where to go for your insights. It's nothing that you need to do. And that will really enable you to use data alongside business decisions, because there's not that kind of overhead in time to get those insights.
So the core of what we really want to talk about today, however, is the predictive modelling area. As I mentioned, the landscape at the moment is vast. You go out there and look at what the marketing trends for the next year alone can be. You can stumble into areas such as, you know, what the impact of voice search is, you know, chatbots, augmented reality, it seems quite daunting. This is what we have found. We've been working with clients for quite a number of years, and working with clients across a lot of different industries. You know, for example, working with Emirates in the airline industry. In the UK, we have John Lewis, who's as part of the actual big financial services area. John Lewis has some key areas in insurance that we work across. And we have quite a lot of B2B clients. Actually, there can be quite a lot of big common trend of some of the key analytics that we use quite regularly that drives a lot of value within the company and enables further advanced analytics as they move forward. So here are the key areas that we've touched on today. We're going to talk a little bit about recommendation engines, customer segmentation to help drive that clear personalization, understanding your true customer value, lifetime value, and then talk a bit about marketing attribution. So with a very specific focus on a lot of our clients work on actually understanding that customer journey. For anybody who's not aware, recommendation engines actually can have a big impact across a lot of areas. They're typically described as machine learning algorithms, which look to provide relevant items to the user. So those items can either be whether you want to cross-sell a different product, so we know what the current products that customer likes or is viewing, and we want to understand what is the next best item to present to them. It could also be content, so customer is viewing your content, they're interested in particular areas of your website, what's the next best piece of content to deliver to them. And it could be vast different things. So actually you can do that real time as well. So while customers are actively interacting with your your advertising and your content and your products, what is the next best action we can take to that? So recommendations engines in themselves can be drawn out into quite various ways of pushing actionable analytics across your industry. The benefits of recommendation engines can be seen across various KPIs within your company as well. So whether that's your online conversion rates, whether that's driving clear revenue by increasing your average order value, or whether that's by improving your customer relationships with driving overall customer lifetime value. So personalization is key to creating a relevant journey for your customers. Recommendation engines actually can be developed in various different ways. Again, I think predictive analytics can sometimes feel like it's a step that's too far at the moment, depending on your particular analytics maturity. However, we have actually started off quite small with some clients and using advanced BI as opposed to going straight into machine learning algorithms. Understanding the data, pulling them into cross-sell dashboards, for example, and understanding the general impact of one product versus another. And a clear example of this is for a client who was looking at their initial product holdings of customers, developed some very simple cross-sell dashboards, and by focusing that in on key areas of high value items, they were able to identify an incremental 40,000 euros for every 1% uplift in conversion that they could gain. So that gave the e-commerce area of the business very clear focus on where to look within their product holdings and what customers to target. You can actually become more advanced, however, so pushing that into your machine learning algorithms, you can develop some market basket analysis, which again can be a clear focus on products, but can actually also be pushed into what is the best combination of content. So again, using a very similar approach, market basket analysis and spade algorithms, some companies were able to uplift their online conversion by 4%, and that is purely by looking at the content that the customer was looking to interact with next. Recommendation analysis can also be done as a pure propensity modeling exercise. So who are our customers, what do they have, and can we identify the highest propensity for product A to be uptaken next. That can be pushed into customer marketing emails to clearly focus relevant messaging to customers at the right time. So recommendation engines are often talked about in terms of that on-site personalization. However, the applications can be huge across your business. You can push that out into your products. You can optimize your content. You can look at promotional bundles, so what bundles of promotions can go next, and then truly understand the next best action. Is there any questions?
So kind of following on from recommendation, kind of customer segmentation, which is essentially where you try and divide your customer base based on certain characteristics. You know, that might be geography, the kind of the lifestyle they lead, the demographics, and then personalizing their experience, whether that's on your site. You could also be personalizing the communications that you send out to them, so the emails. There's lots of different things you can do there. So, for example, a kind of a classic example might be like if you're an airline. You might like to divide the customer base by the business travelers or the holiday makers, and according to which customer base they fall into. So if you see that someone's come onto your site and they're kind of coming on a Monday and leaving on a Tuesday, you might determine that they're a business customer, and therefore maybe they'd like to have a priority ticket for like queuing and such, so that they don't have to spend much time in the airport. Equally, if you see that like a kind of 2 adults and 2 kids is kind of like come onto your site, maybe you'd want to suggest that they have a meal on the flight, you know, or that kind of thing. So it's all about trying to drive revenue and personalize personalized content, because that really goes a long way to actually increasing revenue and increasing conversion. And also things like retention. You know, you'll get better customer retention this way. So a couple of examples of ways you can segment your customer base. It's typically applied behavioral, demographic, geographic, or kind of lifestyle level. At the bottom here, got kind of a classic behavioral customer segmentation method, the RFM model, which is recency, frequency, and monetary. So by looking at how recently someone's converted, and also the frequency with which they tend to convert, and also their kind of average transaction value, you might like to kind of communicate with them differently. So for instance, if someone's a very new customer, so they haven't purchased with you very frequently, this is their first purchase. If someone's a new customer, you might provide them with onboarding support. So that might be sending them an email, like how to use their service, how do they make the most of your service. So start building that relationship and start, making them feel at home with your business. However, if someone has bought with you very recently, but they also buy your product very frequently and they have a very high transaction value, you might like to reward them to keep them. These are your champions, the people who will go out and proselytize and will kind of tell their friends about your products. So it's important to keep them in your customer base, and then it's important to reward them as well. We all know how frustrating it can be when you're with a company for 10 years and you feel like all the new customers are getting the rewards, but what are you getting? So that might lead you then to leave. Whereas if you're constantly being rewarded for being a loyal customer and a champion of the product, you're much less likely to actually leave.
So the next key area that we're seeing quite a big uptake on within a lot of our clients at the moment is a focus on customer lifetime value. In some ways, it's a very simple definition, and in some ways it can also be a very simple application. Essentially, it's just looking at the value that customer contributes over the lifetime of the company. So we're all aware, and we probably all do a lot of ROI metrics, where we look at that initial transactional value. Customer comes in, we spend X amount via PPC to gain them, and they spend £20 on a product, and we can calculate our ROI here. However, different customers have very different customer lifecycle journeys. Some customers can start slow, but actually become very loyal customers over a period of time. Other customers can come in, spend a lot of money, and never come back to us again. So the function, the understanding of what a customer lifecycle is for each individual customer can actually become quite complicated, but also extremely important to really understand what the true value of our customers are over time. There's various ways that you can approach customer lifetime value. And there are various different equations that you can apply to it. You can actually start quite simple and you can get quite complicated. I think the key area that we would like to pull out today is that, don't be afraid to start. You can start with those very simple equations, taking that first step forward and understanding at least what the potential for a longer lifetime value might be. Gives you that very initial and powerful formula to understanding your customers better. The way to truly make customer lifetime value actionable is to coordinate it across the multiple areas of your business. Customer lifetime value is not one of those areas that sort of has a very specific focus on one metric. It can be seen across the business. So make sure that you look at all the strategies where customer lifetime value might be impacted. For example, bringing your customers in. Are you bringing in the right customers and acquiring the right customers in the first place? Retaining those customers. How do you create that customer relationship strategy to identify those clear high value customers at the start and then encourage that relationship? Or how do you deal with the customers who are looking at like their low value? What relationship do you develop with these guys, and how does that actually push out into different aspects of product development and promotional strategies? Similarly, within your financial modeling, customer lifetime value can have huge impact. So it's one of those areas that actually can be approached in so many different ways and has a lot of benefits. The key thing for you in your business is to truly understand what are the key levers that might drive your customer lifetime value. For one example here is that you focus in on those areas that within your business that you understand actually impacts your customer. So to turn the dial, to shift the dial, you might be looking at how can you increase the revenue, how can you improve how long that they stay with you, but also how can you reduce the costs to servicing that customer and or acquiring that customer. We'll talk a little bit more about lifetime value towards the end, but it's a very powerful piece of your actionable analytics.
So I'll talk a little bit about marketing attribution. I'm sure something that you've all heard about. Essentially, what we're trying to do with marketing attribution is understand the customer journey, understand what's driving them to your products, and what's then keeping them and actually getting them to convert. So what we'll do here is we'll try and attribute value to each of these marketing interactions. So maybe you want to know how much is that sports sponsorship, worth? Like, how much is that actually driving awareness? How much is that driving people to your site? How much is that billboard that you have on the side of a road worth spending on? And then once you've got a good view of the customer journey and what people are clicking through, what kind of marketing channels people are using, you can then start optimizing that marketing spend. So that's where you say, okay, maybe I'm oversaturating my my billboard spend, right? Maybe we've got like billboards all over the city and people aren't responding to it, and so maybe we can shift some of that to maybe a PPC campaign, get some paid search going or some display. And then kind of finally, you've got the intra-channel optimization. So that's where you look within. So you might look within your PPC landscape, your paid search landscape, and you might say these keywords are performing particularly well. This campaign didn't perform that well. Maybe we could try a different, try different content, something similar to that. So marketing attribution is essentially helping you understand that customer journey in full, and then make decisions to enable more effective marketing and increase ROI for your marketing spend. So yeah, first, how do I go about attributing value to marketing interactions? So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with econometric techniques. This is where we might try and use historic data, a load of various variables, like you might use all of your marketing spend data and your revenue data together to try and understand those offline touch points. So you might use regression techniques to understand, because you can't actually see someone who sees a billboard who then goes onto your site. You don't know that they've seen that billboard. You don't know it's that billboard that's driven the awareness. So by using these econometric techniques, you can actually kind of infer who has come through and the response of spending that money in revenue. And then when we talk about the kind of online techniques, when someone actually visits your site, we can actually see that in the data. So we can see if someone's come through a PPC click or a display click. Then you have the question about, which click do you attribute value to? Kind of typical model is the last interaction, which is where it's the most recent interaction that gets the value. So if someone clicks through a display on maybe like a Facebook page, clicks through to your site, but then doesn't convert, and then latterly types in your company name and then clicks through and then converts, it's that final click that would get the value, the full value of the conversion. But maybe it should actually be that display ad that gave them the awareness in the first place. So that's where we start looking at more data-driven approaches, where you start talking about like Markov models and Shapley models, where that value is attributed in a more fair way. And this is where like a lot of marketing can be undervalued or indeed overvalued, and companies can spend too much in one area and neglect another area, despite the fact that that is actually driving that awareness, which is a necessary part of the customer funnel. Sorry, any questions on that last slide? So yeah, secondly, once you've got that attribution model, what do you do with it? What do you do with the revenue data? Like when we say you've got, $1 million generated revenue from your PPC spend, what do you do? So something we've done with quite a few clients now is build a kind of spend optimizer. This is something that looks at the revenue across all of your marketing channels. So in the dashboard on the bottom left, this client had kind of 6 channels. They had their display channels, they had their PPC channels, their social channels. And what we look at doing is understanding how close to saturation are they for each of those channels. So are they spending enough in PPC, or are they spending too much in display? And on the bottom right, you have the marketing spend optimizer, which is where we built this tool that allows the marketing user to put in their budget, put in some spend constraints. So do they want to spend in a certain area? Do they want to test in another area? And then what it will do, what the spend optimizer will do, is look at all of the different channels, look at all the different spend curves, and recommend a spend accordingly, and recommend the spend that will provide the highest revenue and the highest number of orders. And so yeah, you also then, as a result of that, get a predicted revenue for a marketing spend. And then we have the optimizing kind of intra-channel. So this is where you build out reporting suites that will allow you to see, how are your PPC campaigns performing? How are your display campaigns performing? So this is taking data from Google Analytics or Adobe or wherever you have that data, and presenting it in a way that will allow you to optimize your PPC campaigns or your display campaigns or whatever. So you'll see that, if taking the PPC example, you'll see a list of keywords and your list of your campaigns, and you'll see the response you're getting from the customer base. You'll see, what revenue, maybe certain keywords aren't driving any conversions, and so you'll then move that spend from one of those keywords to maybe another keyword that is actually getting high number of conversions, high number of click-throughs. These dashboards also will allow you to see that kind of the search space as well. So like how many impressions are you getting for a particular keyword, and what's your kind of market share there?
So the final part of our analytics maturity curve was around optimization. Just to revisit that analytics maturity curve, and as it currently stands, some people may have seen this before. It starts with your data automation, collecting your data, understanding what happened, and moving through some more advanced aspects of insight analytics, predictive modeling, and then how do you bring that all together? What I think is misrepresented by this curve is that actually the journey towards optimization is not linear. You do not need to have to do all of these steps in order to get to a very clear optimization aspect of your journey, and you don't need to have everything absolutely perfect down here in order to be able to begin your predictive modeling. We've approached a lot of different actionable analytics, either predictive or through reporting and insight, and that drives a lot of value in the business. Ultimately, what we believe optimization is adapting each aspect of your core strategy. So, bringing your data in, understanding it and collecting it, drawing out that insight, bringing that across the business so everybody shares and understands what's happening, and enabling those predictive analytics. As I said, just because you don't have the full data lake set up and running yet doesn't mean that you can't start with your predictive analytics by beginning with some nice simple models, focusing in on some key areas and revenue driving projects. You can understand your data gaps and push that back into your data collection and your data automation functions. By drawing out your insight and understanding your customer understanding, your BI and your analytics, you can then push that into your predictive analytics and vice versa. All of these things operate in tandem to each other. And overarching that, what you really need to do is have a data strategy that encapsulates everything that you want to do. So where are you looking to drive as a business? What is your vision at the end of each project or all of the projects? You know, what is your main business goal? And we're all aware that once we start reporting up into the business, there's probably only two or three real KPIs that people care about, depending on your business, whether that's revenue or people or content or engagement. There's some really key focus areas. So start driving those predictive analytics now and draw out that insight. And just to sort of pull this all together, the reality of any of your analytics projects, whether they be predictive or driven by more insight, is that what they really should do is work together. So I've got a case study here which draws on a lot of the things that we've discussed, LTV being one sort of the core focus areas on it. This is an example of a customer who came to us and identified a key area that they felt needed addressing, and it was, you know, simply customer churn. You could sit down and approach that with some churn propensity models, you know, nice, I say simple, a nice focus project. Let's look at our customer churn and let's see if we can identify which customers are about to churn and change that metric into something that is more beneficial to the business. However, actually, when you look at that with a bit of an overarching strategy, you understand that churn is impacted in many different areas of the business and by many different metrics that go around it. What we did is we brought together a workshop with people across the business. So we drew in the customer acquisition team. Customer acquisition team thought, why do I care about customer churn? My KPIs are acquisition, bringing customers in. You know, we brought in the customer marketing team who were quite key to having that relationship and that conversation with the customers. We brought in people from billings and finance to understand some of the different metrics. And we also brought in this particular client, the contact centers where they had that final conversation with the customer. What you will tend to find across your business is that there can be a lot of different competing KPIs, and sometimes by working within one aspect of your industry or one aspect of your business, that can have a negative impact on other KPIs. So when we were looking at all of the different metrics, we realized that this was multifaceted. How we did it was that we switched it from customer churn to looking at customer retention. So how do we turn this into a positive retaining customers, and then advancing that out into how do we retain the right customers. So we actually developed multiple models to look at what was initially a customer churn focus. So we built out an LTV to understand who our customers are, what value they drive to us, and how we can actually focus in our strategies on the high value customers. We built churn prediction models as well. So we did do the propensity models that understood how and when customers were about to churn. But we also worked within the contact center to understand how that we can push the impact of, if I know a customer is about to churn, what can I do about it? Because knowing a customer is about to churn is only one aspect. I need to understand how I can talk to that customer. So we also incorporated segmentation. So segmentation and understanding our customers allowed us to have the conversation using the tone of voice to the different customer segments. And this actually had an impact across multiple metrics within the industry. As you can see here, lifetime value was increased by 3%. Overall churn was reduced by 18%. But also other complementary metrics such as how the contact center was able to save the right customers, help them to improve their metrics as well. I think we've got a hand up, is that correct? Okay, I think I've only got one slide left, so in a nutshell, we've focused on some very clear predictive analytics models today, but the key takeouts that we would like you to take away from today is that don't think that the journey to more advanced analytics needs to be quite a linear one and that you need to put into place a lot of data automation, a lot of data collection, and set that reporting in BI up. You can start your predictive analytics journeys now, even incorporating some initial dashboards and explorations. You can start building out your cross-sell models or your RFM matrix to understand your basic customer segments. Adopt a data science approach, and by that what I mean is to truly understand the journey from start to finish. Don't just focus on the models themselves. The BI and the insight that comes with it is just as important, and sometimes more important than the model that actually comes out the other end. Understand your models, build the models for you and your business. There are lots of black box models that you can just pick off the shelf, but actually when you want to use that within your business and to optimize to your metrics, you find that there's a lot of customization that needs to happen. And make sure that the insights to those models are actually easy to understand and stuff that you can talk to around the business, because you know, in that last example, churn in itself might have been a very simple churn model that had one particular output, but by bringing that insights across the business, you can actually start to pull the levers on many different metrics that then coordinate and pull together. And don't be afraid. Get started, start doing those predictive models. Even if you have small data sources now, one step forward is a gain. So that's it from us. Happy to take questions. I'm conscious that we're haven't got a lot of time. I'm not sure I can see the chat function, but hopefully somebody will help me if there's some questions.
If anybody has any questions, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself as well. Else you can just put it in the chat. Okay, and we have a question from Samuel. Any comments on the model extensions of clumpiness and cohort effects?
So can you repeat that question?
Yeah, any comments on the model extensions of clumpiness and cohort effects?
And let me just escape from this. Sam, have you got? Like clumpiness.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by that, Samuel. Maybe if you could.
Oh, hang on, I can see.
Maybe you could expand on that.
Hi, Sam. Have you got some specific aspects of that you're looking to understand?
Samuel, I can see that your microphone is on, but we can't hear you, unfortunately.
I'm not sure that it's something that we understand enough about, Samuel, in order to understand this specifically what you're looking to attempt. I'm more than happy to have a follow-up conversation. But yeah, it's quite a broad question. Should we focus on large buying customers rather than attaining new customers? If I understand this question correctly, Sam, large buying customers, that ultimately comes down to your business and what you're looking to do within that business. There's many different approaches that you can take to whether you're looking at customer acquisition at that point in time. You certainly can't not look at customer acquisition depending on what position your company in. If you're quite new, you want to acquire customers, you want to bring those customers in, and you want to get that customer base up as quickly as possible. I certainly wouldn't recommend that you start narrow. We can't understand who our natural customers are unless we let them in the door and analyze them and understand who they are and what their needs are. So attaining new customers is quite key. Understanding who those customers are is even more important. And that's where you have the combination of analytics. So what value are they driving? You know, how do they like to be spoken to? What behavioral characteristics do they have through your segmentation? And how do they move through your RFM matrix? I guess another aspect of that, that type of cohort analysis, for example, is how do you actually push somebody who today looks like they could be low value and only interacting a certain way? How can we encourage that relationship to be more high value in the future? So it's not a simple question to answer. It's not just a one size fits all, but it's, you know, how does that fit for your strategy? How do you optimize your analytics?
And yeah, just to add on to that, I think that's something that you try and focus on with, you know, your customer lifetime value models, where you try and assess, you know, the value of a customer and which kind of segments you're trying to gain and who are the most valuable customers to you. So that's something that would hopefully come out of those kind of models.
Okay, no worries. Sorry, Sam.
No
I'm
worries.
happy to have a follow-up conversation with you afterwards if you'd like to. Yeah, and if anybody does want to follow up with us afterwards, I'm sure our we can share our details. Any further questions? No?
Okay, awesome. I think Basil has also just said thank you so much. He's put it in the chat as well. If everybody could just turn on their video for a second. So did someone say something? Okay, awesome. So we'll just take a picture for social media. One, two, three, and cheese. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Anne and Sam, for the lovely session.
Thanks, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks, Sam.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Sam.